Dejan, Sappi, and this is
Vive le Québec libre.
This is a presentation that I ended up putting together for Sappi. Some of you may know that I work very closely with our marketing group and I present, but I'm also the futurist for Sappi. One of the things that Sappi relies on me for is to go out and look and seek. I'm a voracious reader, and look at new technology and try to find what's happening in the graphic arts industry. My first responsibility is to go to Boston at our headquarters where I'm debriefed. We take that information and we integrate it into our strategy. Obviously, in many cases, it's about acquisitions. You know, is this the kind of technology that we should be interested in that has long-term repercussions? But then at the same time, we're also trying to find out what's happening in the graphic arts, and my responsibility first to my company and then secondly to you. I gather up as much information as I can, things that I think that are going to be interesting, exciting, and impacting our industry. So with that, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Alvin Toffler. He is considered the godfather of futurists. He wrote a book about 40 years ago called Future Shock. And one of the things that he said to Future Shock that had a huge impact on me was he said, if you look at all the really great inventions and innovations, they were truly started by science fiction writers. And he personally loved Jules Verne. And he said, if you go and read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or any of the Jules Verne novels, you know, if you went into the Nautilus, it had television, it had a telephone. When they went on land, they had a car before cars were really invented. They had jetpacks. We think of writers like Asimov or Heinlein. And one of the things that Toffler said that I thought was so profound was he said, don't think of it as science fiction, rather think of it as science plausible. And in his last book, The Fourth Wave, I grabbed this quote because I thought it was so poignant about where we are right now in our culture. And it says, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those that cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I would ask you, of the three, which do you think is the most challenging? Relearn. We don't like change. But the interesting thing is what I want to share with you and what you're going to see this evening is most of everything that you're going to see, we have at our disposal. We have offset presses that need to be modified. We have inks that just need to be slightly changed. The chemistry needs to be understood. But used in other ways, we can start creating completely new products, completely new areas and revenue streams for printers. So that said, very quickly, the world that I work in as a futurist is really about fads, trends, and disruptive innovation. And I would share with you, we need to be careful in that we live in a world currently that really is driven by fads. Our ability to speak to each other in real time says that we can take a concept and it can go viral. We have to be careful, particularly as designers or in marketing. They're very short-lived. They're typically entertainment-based. They rarely have any kind of investment. It's usually clever or it's a visual. The only thing that will expand or extend the life of a fad is that it becomes a meme. And it's picked up and it travels a little longer. So you'll see the adoption line sort of raise and then it sort of hits a flat and then immediately just drops off. Unless it becomes a meme when it's extended. But let me share something with you that's interesting. There are companies currently who do nothing but, this is absolutely, when I found this out I was like, because you know, you ask yourself the question, can you capitalize, can you dollarize fads? And the response is absolutely. There are companies who do nothing but watch YouTube videos all day long, and this is very true. They have a bell on the desk, and if they see a YouTube video that they think has potential, they ring the bell and interns come running over. Their job is to find out who posted it. And when they posted it, they make an offer and they buy it. So let me ask you the question. How often have you watched the news and that same day you're seeing somebody's phone video of something that happened and it's on the news? Well, that was purchased. Or if you watch late night television and you see one of the hosts and they've got something, you know, that was posted on YouTube and they're showing it that night, it's that company that purchased it. What we really want to look at is trends. Trends are really fascinating. Trends typically there are two different types. There are corporate trends, and then there are public trends. And the interesting thing about corporate trends is they usually have R&D already involved. They already have done beta testing, etc. So they sort of come out of the box pretty solid, and then they get an adoption rate. With mass public trends, they usually start very, very slowly, and they start to raise, and all of a sudden they jump. What makes it jump? They get capital investment. So perfect example, where would you see trends right now? My voice went up at the end, it was a question. Come on. There's no fourth wall, you know better. Pardon? Instagram. Instagram will start some trends, absolutely. Cannabis, well, that's called a party. We all get around and we all like share stuff, you know. It's like, I got this great idea. No, what I'm leading you with is absolutely any kind of fundraiser, all right? Where we're seeing people saying, I've got a great idea, I just need to take it to the next level, but if you can, you know, help me. And there's so many out there. I love Kickstarter. You know, I've purchased a lot of things. I've made a lot of investments at the Kickstarter level. But the other place, at a much more sophisticated level, TED Talks. A TED Talk, sometimes you see somebody who has really worked hard. And the beauty of TED Talks is it doesn't have to be a product. It can be a service. It can be a concept of how we might change our culture. And they need to have that kind of support, financial support, to take it up to the next level. Okay? And then the beauty of trends is that you see an adoption rate, it gets to a certain point, it sort of levels out. And in most cases, it will plateau until it is replaced. And here's the beauty of it, is that in many cases, and in most cases, particularly technologically based trends, it gets to a certain point, and then as it's about to taper off, it gives birth to the next evolution. So perfect example, the one I like to use, you know, we started with things like QR codes. If you remember, they come to the United States in 2009, 2010, not very well received. We really did a poor job of bringing them into our culture. But they had a certain amount of success, and they got to a certain point, and just as they were about to fall off, we got augmented reality. And as augmented reality started to pick up, we got near-field communication. And as near-field communication started to grow, then suddenly we started doing virtual reality. Does that make sense? They all come from that same concept, but the fact is that they've evolved in ways with technology. So now wearables, as you'll see, becomes really the big new piece. So disruptive innovation, game changer. Changing the rules, changing how things are done, has such an immense impact on an industry that it creates all kinds of new businesses, all kinds of new modes. This is very, very important. This is what we really want to see. And we've all lived through that. And one of the things that we know about, I was talking to a friend of mine who was a historian, professor of history, and one of the things we were talking about was the fact that I have a quote that I use in one of my presentations, and it's very shocking, and it's about technology and the way that we blend technology. It was written in 1913. And when I called her up and I said, this is really shocking me, why? And she said, well, if you look at innovation and if you look at invention, historically it's a sine wave. And you have these peaks of innovation, and then it gets integrated, and then once it's integrated, you have new innovation. But what's really taking us, and what shocks us right now as a culture, is that years ago, those sine waves took a long time. And what's happening in our culture now is it's going faster and faster and faster and faster, and we're trying to catch up. It's like it really takes our breath because it's happening so quickly. I'm going to show you some innovations and some inventions, and we're just going to, if you don't mind, sort of play a game. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to try to give you a business case, and then I'm going to ask you, does this look like a fad? Does it look like a trend? Or do you think that it's disruptive innovation? Cool? So, I'm at the largest bookstore in North America. I'm at Powell's in Portland. It is 4 stories. It is 350,000 titles under one roof. I mean, it's staggering. In the middle of Powell's is this, the espresso book machine. Does anybody want to gather what it is?
Print on demand.
Print on demand. It prints any book that has got an ISBN number. So this takes us, first of all, an incredibly long time back. Also, it also includes any book with an ISBN number, even if it is out of print. What you have to appreciate is Google has, in fact, scanned the entire Library of Congress. They are currently scanning the Librairie Nationale of France. They're doing Spain. They're doing as many countries as they possibly can so that they want to digitize all of the written word. In case, well, as you know, tragically, in the Middle East, they've lost libraries. Enormous libraries. This is a way for us to make sure. But, sir?
Library of Alexandria too?
No.
Not quite.
No.
Not that far back.
Not that far back. But the fact of it is, imagine that they have scanned every book. Now, certain books, if they are a public domain, can be replicated. Okay? If they have the approval of the estate, can be replicated. So here's the interesting thing. Machine costs about a little over $1 million. I mean, you can see it's not exceptionally sophisticated. It looks like a copier. Has 4 different size papers. So I go up. Of course, I had to test it. So I said, I want the first book of poems by Edgar Allan Poe. She types it in. She goes, it's available. Would you like a copy? Yes. Now, it's a small book. So it was printed on 8.5 by 11. But you can get pretty much any book depending on the size, the many pages. But it basically, it cost me about $20 and I had it in about less than 10 minutes. Bang. So of course, I happen to be a bibliophile. I have a lot of first editions. So I, of course, asked for this out-of-print Bukowski book, and then I asked for all these. Within 20 minutes, I had 4 books, all of whom were out of print, but I had copies, facsimiles, and they're scanned. So the original font, the original design, everything. Yes, please.
Are they bound?
It is bound.
Okay.
It's a simple bindery. They are actually going to be upscaling this machine for 2 things. One, right now it's black and white. They were upscaling it to color. Secondly, it's just a simple staple bind, and if it's thick, it puts tape on the end. And that's it. But I mean, you're going for the content, you know.
No, but it's just nicer than a bunch of piles of paper. That
Oh, no,
you can
it's not
drop
piles of paper by
Okay.
any means. It's a simple bind. So, let me ask you a question. It's a $1 million machine. It can do a book in about 10 minutes. It has certain is this a fad, a trend, or do you think this is disruptive?
Disruptive.
Fad, trend, disruptive. Well, let's talk about this a second, and we'll set a sort of a pace for it for ourselves. This machine has been out for over ten years.
What's the return on investment?
That's it. I mean, if you've got $1 million machine, but you can only do 10 copies in an hour at $20, the return's not wonderful, right? But the flip side is, if you're a bibliophile and you can get a copy of a book that's been out of print for, decades, doesn't that have a value? All right. I would say it is a trend that actually is disruptive. Let me ask you the question: what is it disrupting?
eBay, Amazon.
Well, in a way, libraries, interestingly, it's working with the library. You don't have to go to it. But
Creating a market that's going to actually bring the technology down, make it easier for people, other shops to afford.
well,
Instead of $1 million machine, get it down to 250,000, get it down to 10,000.
let's imagine. Let's take it to the next step, and I'll say, once we have inkjet at a commercial level, it will change things. We don't yet. What is it disrupting? In fact, is who is it taking? By the way, I should share with you right away that when you buy a book, the appropriate estate or whomever gets royalties.
They don't with us.
Pardon?
Do they get royalties with this?
Oh, yeah. That's a part. When you pay your $20, they get a certain percentage, but then the rest of the money goes to the appropriate. Who have they cut out of the equation? Publishers and, most importantly, distributors. Does that make sense? Well, here's the interesting thing. You're saying use bookstore, but the point of this is, it's a facsimile, and you do. I don't think that you would pay $20 for something that's current. But for me to walk out for $80 with 4 books that were out of print for decades, something is wonderful. Let me ask you, if you don't mind, we'll move on. They have not sold a lot of these machines. So that's the reason I say that is that would make you think that it is a fad. I personally don't think that it is being marketed correctly, and I will ask you, if you had to place this, if you had to market this machine, where would you put it, please?
Library, Congress.
Universities.
Coffee shop, university.
I thought Amazon had those.
Well, hold your thought.
Government.
How about
Library
if we put it at
Congress.
an airport,
Yeah.
or a train station, or a bus station?
Let's do a Kickstarter for that.
Yeah, but here's my point though. I would certainly think of this in a university setting. I mean, all of a sudden it starts to make sense. All right? This is a wonderful kind of marketing exercise, but it's very real. What I want you to appreciate is, why is this so interesting to me, is that we are talking about on-demand publishing. And interestingly enough, right now, there is a newsstand in New York that can print 250 magazines on demand in color. They have no inventory. Why is that important? Because one of the things that we found out was, in fact, right now 70% to 80% of magazines at newsstands are sent back unpurchased. Yeah, the newsstand model, unfortunately, is not living as well as it was. Please.
Could you find your out-of-print books online?
No, I mean, you'd have to go to a bookseller, a vintage bookseller. They may have it, yeah.
I mean,
But-
like digitally.
Could you get a
But-
PDF?
Could you get
Yeah, well,
could you get
you can, but you cannot get a PDF of books that are out of print. Can you find it? Yes. That's called a bookseller, and it's called a vintage bookseller. But the other thing is, it may not be available. This is on demand. I mean, I was pulling titles out of the air, and they were able to go, oh yeah, it's got an ISBN number. Yes, it's been scanned. Yes, we've got it. So, please.
Isn't part of its value not just the physical aspect that it can print on demand?
It's totally
but the fact that
context.
it's archival?
Absolutely.
I mean, the more time passes, the
Yeah.
more valuable this becomes.
Absolutely. And the fact of it is, I will say this because we're all friends. I have children, and thank you. And my point is, I have a lovely library of first editions. They're under lock and key, right? something like this, I could leave it on my desk, and if I need another copy, I can get another copy. I own the real thing.
Yeah, you do.
But my point is,
You can highlight that.
but the point, yeah, and let me be honest. Let me be honest with you. If I'm looking for a book that I cannot find through one of the booksellers, if I were to call somebody that has this and they can find that it truly has an ISBN number, then in fact I can get a facsimile of the book. It's not the real book. We got to move on. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. So, this is organic light emitting diode. I'm showing you this because this is a video from 1980, or it's a film from 1980. It was invented by Sony. As you can see, it is the very thinnest monitor ever. It's so thin it can actually be rolled, and it's flexible enough that it can be curled. This was incredibly expensive when it came out. In fact, it was not used except for things like NASA, whatever, because it was so expensive for about 20 odd years. Well, the interesting thing of it is, it wasn't until this. This was 1999. This is Esquire. And what I want you to notice is that is the OLED, and that is the OLED, and it's embedded into the magazine itself. And it ran on 3 batteries. Every component of this was made in the United States. It was fabricated in Mexico, shipped up to the United States in refrigerated trucks to 3 cities, LA, Chicago, New York. When it was sat on the newsstand, it looked like this. So imagine, it's actually changing, sorry. It's changing fonts, it's changing imagery, it's changing color. I mean, imagine this on a newsstand. Wow. Imagine how that looks sitting on a newsstand. They sent it to 3 cities, they did 250,000 copies, which sold out in 6 hours. I had the pleasure of talking to David Granger, who was the editor at the time, editor-in-chief of Esquire, and I asked him, I'm working here, okay? And I asked David Granger, as I said, 250,000 copies, sold out in 6 hours. They sold for $5.99. And I said, if you could go back and do this again, what would you change? And of course, he laughed just like that. And he said, well, first of all, I would have done 500,000 copies, and I would have sold it for $10. But this was revolutionary. You know, so we're not even going to play that. Is it a fad, is it a trend, or is this disruptive?
Disruptive.
They only did it once. Why did they only do it once? Because it took 3 months. They actually pretty much broke even on this. Actually, they made a little bit of money, not much. They were trying to create a point, and they wanted to revolutionize magazine design. The idea, I mean, here, you're now pretty much 1 or 2 steps away from the Harry Potter newspaper. Does that make sense? All right, and let me put it this way to you. I will show you, in fact, that we now have printed circuitry that could connect that to Bluetooth. 10 years later, it's catching up. All right? Now, where has that gone? So, quite honestly, was this disruptive? Yes, it was. You know, was it commercially viable? No, not really, because 3 months for a magazine is too long. I mean, it would have to be a special issue, but you couldn't be doing this on a monthly basis. We can now.
But they never did it again ever?
No,
It's like
they didn't.
10
They
years?
did it once. And amazingly enough, Esquire was the first magazine to have augmented reality on its cover, lenticular printing on its cover. They've always been very much in the forefront. They were risk takers of the high order, but some of them just weren't. They were always commercially viable, but scheduling just took too long.
I see a lot of printed marketing pieces,
Yeah.
or at least people proposing them.
Yeah.
That you open it up and it's got a little LED screen in
Right.
it that does a little video,
Hold
and
on.
it's neat.
Yeah.
You open it up and you see it. Hey, it'd be great if we can utilize it, but then you start to think, okay, we got to do content.
Yeah.
You think of duration, the battery's going to run out. What's
No,
going to happen?
hold your
So-
stop.
But what UV Us has done with this product is they've standardized the format. They've lowered the turnaround time to 5 to 7 days. You can order them online, and they've made these where you can order as few as 5 units, up into however many you want. So fascinating stuff. So I want to show it to you. So it ships in, have a nice little package here. This ships as a first-class parcel, which is about $3 a piece to mail. A little zip strip opening. I'll pull it out. Some bubble wrap for protection. And this one has a custom case on it. These are digitally printed and can be entirely personalized. And these can be in whatever format you want.
I'm going to stop here. This was shot 5 years ago. Hopefully all of you know Chris Bukowski. Full disclosure, one of my best friends. We do a lot of research together, and this was something that was revolutionary because for the first time it had been done, but you had to order it in the thousands to make it viable. Now for the first time you could buy 5, and back then 5 cost about $35 a piece, but you could still only buy 5, and the beauty of it is that it had a USB port underneath, very inexpensive software, and you could just upload it. And so as a creative director, one of the things I've said is buy 100, buy them blank, and then personalize it and send out 10, 15, 20 at a time to target markets and then get your response. Well, this actually was a great idea, but it had its limitations until this happened. And now this company has taken it to the very next step. They actually have 4 different frame sizes. You can do a lot with this. USB port down at the bottom. It's a relatively inexpensive package. It allows you to do a lot. What we're seeing, interestingly enough, first groups to adopt this as artists, photographers, anybody who would carry a portfolio can actually do this and do it very, very successfully. We're also starting to see commercial applications of this where somebody shoots an expensive commercial or has high production value and wants to get it out. Well, obviously it'd have to go to the next step, and now it's the size of a business card. Let me ask you a question. Is everybody familiar with the elevator speech? Yep. There's your elevator speech. Does that make sense? Somebody asks me, what do? You hand them this, and again, can be completely uploaded, has sound, and is immensely affordable. Now that changes the game. Now all of a sudden, we've got something, because let's look at it from a very different perspective. We are migrating, and we are evolving as a consumer culture from a word-based culture to an image-based culture or a video-based culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'll show you a slide in a second where the interesting thing is, it is why augmented reality is so incredibly important. The ability to take the viewer from the printed page and seamlessly get them online. From a marketing or sales perspective, the credit card makes total sense. It's your elevator speech. It's your portfolio. It's too small in my mind for a portfolio. The larger size makes more sense. It's just like trying to, if I were to send you my portfolio over the phone, not the best way to see it. But, please.
The wow factor.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a great wow factor. But interestingly enough, I can share with you how I've used it as a consultant. Please.
I would integrate it across all channels.
You can. This is perfect for multimedia, multi-channel. Absolutely. You notice that I called it a video postcard because that's exactly what it is. This is the tool that you use to be able to get to people who are difficult to get to or impossible to get to. So what was the first application? I have a healthcare background, and interestingly enough, it is impossible to see doctors now if you are a pharmaceutical rep or an equipment rep, not because the doctors don't want to see you, it's just that they don't have the time. They want the information. So how do I get to them? I take that, I upload my piece. Now it can have any production value that you want. It could have charts, graphs, talking heads, it could have whatever you want. And I send it to them, and the key is that I will send it to them using either FedEx or UPS so that it has to be signed for. With a little post-it note, which is exactly what we did. I only need 4 minutes of your time at your convenience. And then we did a survey following up, and of course it was a 4-minute, very beautifully done about a new drug, and then also we did it for equipment. And then when we tested them, we said, when did you look at it? And they said, well, I did it on my coffee break. I did it when I wanted to, when I got home at 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever. My point is this. It is because of the tsunami of content coming at people. They're very protective, but if I want to get to them, I have to have that wow factor. And if I send them a package that's got to be signed for, and then they have to do something like a zip strip or something, and then there's a wonderfully crafted message that's short, relevant, and timely. We're now starting to evolve the way that we can merchandise and market, particularly to professions that are very, very difficult. The C-suite, perfect example. Does that make sense?
It's
So-
not great to make an environmental statement, though.
Well, and
Because you can do that with augmented reality,
Mhm.
and someone's only percent, so you're kind of putting a whole lot of crap out there.
well,
Well, they have to look at it, they gotta load it with this. You're not gonna wanna throw it away.
Yeah.
Because you might feel bad about throwing it away. Two, you can have the media and not have to drive them to a website or drive them to an alternate.
and here's the interesting thing. One of the base emotions for humans is ownership. This is mine. The other part that's very true is that the USB port, if you go online and you get the software, you can actually erase what's on this, and you can actually put anything else that you want on it. So the fact of it is, and I agree with you, quite frankly, we are dealing with issues now where we are working in technology, where we now have to truly address the environmental footprint, the life to grave, the birth to grave. But I think that this gives us something. Now, I made a comment earlier, and I think that this is very important for us to be able to appreciate. And that is that we have a new presentation on multi-generational marketing. This took me so long to find this chart because I could always get numbers for all of the social media. But what I wanted was to better understand social media vis-a-vis the demographics. And what I want you to be able to see is this. So the blue is Facebook, the green is YouTube, the dark blue is Snapchat, and by the way, unfortunately, Instagram was not on this. I don't know why. And the yellow is Tumblr. But what I want you to see, which is incredibly important, is this. Look at Facebook. So if you look here, this is by demographics, by generation. Boomers, Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z. Look at Facebook, and look at as you go down in the demographic age, Facebook non-existent by the time you get down to millennials. They do not care about Facebook whatsoever. They're not on it. Why?
Their parents are on it.
Heck yeah, it's creepy. It's so creepy they don't want to, you know? But what I want you to notice is this, and this is what's most important. Look at YouTube. By the time you get down to Gen Z, it is the predominant. Right now, the average Gen Z views 168 videos per day. Because, keep in mind, some of them are seconds long, 2 minutes long, they're short, and they're watching them. My wife is a professor, and she says when she goes by her students and they have their phone on, they're not tweeting, they're not corresponding, they're watching videos. So my point here is, we know that we are becoming a more visually oriented consumer culture. We need to be able to integrate that idea of being able to use the ability. You just wanted that image so badly. We need to understand that it is print and digital together that is the most optimal communication, multi-channel. But we can do it, and we can do it very, very effectively. Anyway, we got to move. I love this. This is one of my very favorite augmented reality pieces. This is Sir Ralph Fiennes talking about climbing Everest.
On the expeditions, you don't get self-doubt. You either can keep going, or you'll be dead if you do, so you don't.
One of the principal dancers of the Royal Ballet.
Being 14, 15 in a comprehensive school where there was no other ballet dancers, that was quite...
And one of the top theatre producers in London.
I was brought up in a place called Newlyn, near Penzance in Cornwall. And every single morning I used to walk from my house.
What I want you to appreciate is anything at all can be an augmented reality trigger. In this case, we're using the photograph as the trigger, but it could be a logo, it could be an illustration, it can be an icon, it could be a border, it can be anything whatsoever, and the ability for us to take the viewer, the reader, seamlessly from on page to online and back is truly becoming one of the most important tools that we have. This becomes incredibly, incredibly powerful. Perfect example. I don't know how many of you have seen this, but Lego has built what is known as the Lego Center in their stores, and the child brings the box to the monitor in their store, and it shows them in 3D, in real time, what's inside the box, including anything extra that they might get. Because I don't know about you, have you ever been with a child in a Lego store? You know what they do? They shake the crap out of it. As if by doing this, they're going to find out what it is. Here's the interesting thing, though. I'm going to go back a second. Here's the interesting thing. Lego, which is an incredibly successful company, has posted a 20% in-store sales increase by being able to let the child see what's inside. And they want to buy it. And so the interesting story that I found out about this was, I'm not showing you the pirate ship, but the day that this was shot, they said that there was a young boy, you can barely see him in this shot, and he's holding up this box, and it's huge. You can barely see the kid. The box is so big, and it is a police station, and you see the doors opening, and there's motorcycles coming out, and there's ambulances and all this stuff, and it's fabulous. And the dad's behind him. And then they said that the folks that were shooting this, suddenly they looked at the dad, and he had this like horrified look on his face. He had just realized that that box was $199. So they said the dad goes away, he comes back and he said, Jimmy, Timmy, whatever, he said, let's look at the pirate ship. And like, Jimmy, Timmy was like, yeah, pirate ship. And sure enough, it builds the pirate ship, and it was $29.99, and he got away safe. So yeah, you have to be cool about that. So this was a very interesting piece. I show it because it was an experiment, and I'll tell you up front, this is a fad. But this was Wired Magazine with Lexus. They showed you where to put your iPad. Now keep in mind, there's nothing printed on the back of the sheet. It's just the outside. This is the ad. Everything you're about to see is actually showing through the paper. see this one section, which is really terrific. Wait for it. How cool is that? Yeah, it's got the ooh factor, doesn't it? They did it once. It was a fad. Downside, there are too many different types of tablets, and lining it up didn't make any sense. They really hoped, and the interesting thing was for Lexus, they had to buy this side of the paper with the ad, and then the back side had nothing because you didn't want the show through. And it was like, so they had to pay for 2 pages. It's like, is it worth it? No, not really.
IKEA would like everyone to know about Place, our new augmented reality app. Built on Apple's new AR kit, you can easily place true to scale 3D models of IKEA furniture in your place. Scan, browse, select.
It just took a measurement in real space. So that what they're showing you is in scale.
So that could mean less of this. And less of this. And probably more of this. We want to make it easier for people everywhere to imagine a better place. Share this place. And this place. Try Place in your place.
Nobody does it better. They've been doing this for almost 10 years. Now please understand, they are immensely committed to their catalog. But the first thing they admit is we cannot get catalogs to everybody, although they try. 200 million catalogs in 24 hours globally. Yeah, it's massive. But the other part that they said is it's tough for people to get to our stores. But we want them to still be able to have access to it. I mean, this is so incredibly impressive. If you have any interest, I would share, please go to YouTube and type in augmented reality / IKEA, and you will see the last, honestly, 10 years of augmented reality that they've done, and it's incredibly impressive.
Didn't the AR double the retention value of the catalog?
Absolutely.
Because they can change it on the back end.
Absolutely, and it's incredibly powerful. But each time they put something out, they add a functionality that really makes it. The fact that you can take your phone, scan an area, and it sets the actual real space so that everything is in scale is extraordinary. Let me share this before I give you the next one. This is the next level. And I am so impressed with this, it just knocks me out. Yeah. So, the next piece that you're going to see, this is next level. Please understand, we are going and moving incredibly fast into wearables. The idea that we can start wearing wearables, which we call mixed reality. So it's going to be augmented reality plus virtual reality. What I want you to see in this particular piece, this exists, by the way. It is a wearable that is actually linked by Wi-Fi to a textbook. The textbook happens to be Basic Anatomy 101 for young doctors who need to start becoming familiar before they go into the operating theater. So, now you're wearing glasses. You can choose the sex, the gender. It shows you this body. You can spin it 360 degrees. You can actually decide what body part you want to study, pull it out, then say, I need as much information on the lungs, particularly the left lobe. Bang. Now it can give it to me like this, or it could be read to me. I can take the skull, I can expand it into all of its components and then ask what they are. I could actually zoom in and ask, now watch this, this is so amazing. It's an MRI that can be done with the wave of a hand. Imagine that as a doctor, what kinds of knowledge this gives you. Or here's the textbook, you're studying the spine, you've got the text, and then you've actually got three-dimensional spine that you actually can spin around, and then you can ask questions, and it will answer it. Key question. Why am I so excited? I didn't drink. What is this changing?
Education forever.
Forever. Homeschooling. Forever. I can send the headset and the textbook to anywhere that has Wi-Fi, anywhere in the world, and now I'm training doctors or engineers, anything STEM. Does that make sense? So when we start seeing this kind of incredible, this is disruptive in no uncertain terms. This is going to change the way we educate. This is going to change the way we learn. That idea that I can actually get this now. Is it going to be expensive at the beginning? Absolutely. Will it have to be sponsored in order to be able to send it to countries that couldn't afford it? Absolutely. But will they get the education? Absolutely. That's what I think becomes important. So, this, I don't know why people did not get as excited about this as I did. Did anybody see this? I know it went right by. It was the 100th anniversary of Forbes magazine. They asked you on the front of the magazine, download this app on your phone, aim your phone at the cover. What you will see is Warren Buffett as a three-dimensional hologram. But here's the interesting thing, and this is what is using speech recognition and artificial intelligence. You can ask him any questions about stocks and he will answer you.
So the idea of the cover to connect 100 years where you were looking at the first issue, and then we actually have technology where people will be able to take a picture of the cover with their smartphone and a video, and it's artificial intelligence, and people can ask a question and it will you get an interactive conversation shot off the cover.
Huh.
Yeah, it's gonna be really, really
That'll
cool.
be something, yeah.
Really cool.
Hi, I'm Warren Buffett, and we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of Forbes magazine by
So there he
answering
is,
your
a
question.
hologram.
Thanks to artificial intelligence, you and I can have a conversation.
Now stop and realize this is the early stages, very early stages. But this is the cover of a magazine. And that you can, in fact, through artificial intelligence and speech recognition, be able to ask questions and it will answer you. The interesting thing is if you ask a question that is outside of the range, if it's not about stocks, he does this absolute sort of Warren Buffett, well, maybe you should Google that. You know? And I thought it was brilliant. It was a brilliant way of being able to circumvent, something that was outside of the range because it's still new. It's new technology. But that idea that artificial intelligence and speech recognition, which we really have in good measure now, can be extraordinary. So anyway, we talked about wearables. Here's a perfect example. This is called the HoloLens. It's made by Microsoft. But please understand that right now, there are about 10 companies who are racing to bring out wearables that literally are like your glasses, with projectors on the inside and with speakers built into the stems that will allow you to stay. And you'll notice, while it shows you a lot of games, you'll notice they're always in touch with your Microsoft computer for your emails, for your files. You could be working with colleagues on completely different sides of the country at the same time in artificial intelligence. This is very, very important technology because this will be the next step. They're expensive right now, unfortunately, about $3,500, but they're going to be coming down very quickly. The idea is by the time they come out, they'll be about the price of your smartphone. This is creepy. I'm sorry. This is an existing product. It's called the Cricket. It's a Pico projector. It's the smallest projector available. And what it does is it literally shows you interactively your phone, and you can do everything. You can make calls, you can call up files. Now, I talked to them and I said, this is meaningless to me, I wear suits. And they said, no, what you need to understand is In this case, we've simply taken it and wrapped it around a wrist because it makes sense and it's convenient. But you could have this, and by the way, your phone can be 20 feet away, as far as 20 feet away, and it will work. So it could be in your back pocket, in your backpack, or wherever, and it gives you that full access. Is this the best application right now? Probably not. Will it go somewhere that's very interesting? I truly believe it. Just like this. Yeah. It's a printed metallic tattoo that connects to your computer by Bluetooth. So what's the purpose of this? I actually spoke to MIT about this. They said this will allow you to connect to your smartphone, your smart car, your smart home. You can open the door, you can start your car, you can turn on the lights. And right now it's very simplistic. Will it get more sophisticated? Absolutely. I grew up as a key latch kid, and I constantly lost my key. You know, if this was around when my parents, they would have put it on my forehead, okay? They were so pissed off. But the fact is, the ability to be able to have something that is printed. And what I want you to appreciate is this starts the larger conversation about how we are learning to use the inks that we have. Electroconductive inks, electroluminescent inks, in completely different ways, so that we can actually print for the first time on an offset press, modified. We can print the copper oxides to create the anode and the diode, so that when you fold this piece of paper over, you can actually have an LED light up. Now here's the interesting thing. We do have paper at this point that can actually hold a charge. The idea that we can send out direct mail pieces that will do a lot of things, I'm going to show you some things, where all you need to do is put it on a power pad, the paper absorbs the charge, and then it can be used. So, but the fact that I want you to have here is the fact that we now can print circuitry on an offset press. When your thumbs make the connection and you open this up, it's taking your heart rate and it's lighting up the LED lights. Because God knows you're really excited that you own a Toyota. Come on. But look at that pop-up. Isn't that? So they printed 150,000 of these. They did it as an insert in People magazine as a trial. It was so immensely successful, they went back and reprinted this. Now they're giving it out at auto shows and at the dealerships. But that kind of technology, this electroconductive ink, and this is in fact OLED. And it can be programmed. And it can be programmed in ways...
The insert represents the authentic lighting technology being used by Audi for its A8 vehicle. Structural Graphics created the technology behind the print ad, developing a record-breaking number of LEDs to mimic...
So it totally replicates exactly the way the lights work on an Audi, which to them right now is one of the stylistic, components that they really want to push. So this looks like it's very cool, and it's, but let's look at it from a very different application, which is, come on.
Researchers have revealed.
This is known as liquid LED. You need to have an outside power source, but this is all printed. So the beauty of this is they took this technology, and the first product that they created was lighting. It's in the form of wallpaper. Right now in Scandinavia, in new homes, the lighting does not come from above, it comes from your walls. And it uses the electrical circuits that you already have existing, and it's on rheostats. This was so exciting, the ability to use electroluminescent inks that could be printed. The next application that was actually extraordinary, this is a PhD treatise, was actually in clothing. So, while this was done as a runway, what do you think the first commercial application was? Say it again.
Bicycle riders.
Bicycle and runners, and utility. Safety utility. The next that came out that really knocked me out was it went out to the runway, and it was done beautifully. I thought it was going to be garish, and it's not. It was like the piping and clothing, very subtly done, very beautiful. Small battery, worn very comfortably. So you're going to start seeing this more and more, particularly for safety applications, but it's going to have some wonderful commercial application as well. I love this. Yeah. This is electroluminescent inks. And it's spectacular. This was created for Bombay Gin, specifically for the duty-free market. They were not doing well against their competition. People who go into duty-free stores, if you've ever seen them, they're running in, they're fast as they can, they're buying stuff, they got, They needed to be able to capture their attention very quickly. I don't know about you, if I saw that on the shelf, I'm buying it. I'm all about that. But this is extraordinary. Now, the next level up, I will show it to you with a caveat, and that is this is completely replacing neon in Asia. Completely. There's virtually no neon anymore. It's 1/8 of an inch thick. You can see it's completely malleable. It's used for kiosks, it's used for bus sides, it's used on taxi cabs. It is completely replacing neon. And it's incredibly bright, as you can see. It needs an outside source of power, but once you get it, it's extraordinary. If you're interested in this, I cannot invite you more warmly. Go to YouTube and type in electroluminescence and signage. There's this absolutely breathtaking 4-minute video of all the different ways it's being used throughout Asia. Caveat, you're not going to see it in the United States because unfortunately it uses heavy metals and it's toxic. This is completely environmentally wrong in every way possible. But the one thing is, like most things, you invent it, you have issues, and then you figure out, what do I have to do to make it right? But I am telling you, in Asia, it is extraordinary. It is everywhere. And it comes in 4 by 8 foot sheets. You can cut it down. It's printed, and then it is programmed. As you can see, let me go back a second. Watch how it actually, it is tracer light. It's always the same pattern, but it's really bright. And it really makes it, does it extraordinarily well.
It's going to go wrong, but we'll see.
She has this connected to her iPad, and as she touches the instrument,
is Bluetooth connected to my iPad that's over there.
Why an iPad? What, I mean, you
And I
can't
can
hear it.
choose whatever-
But the audience goes crazy because they're totally on her side, right? And by the time she's done, she has pressed each of these instruments, and she's got a whole orchestra playing. Can you hear it?
So anyone can have a jazz jam from a poster.
Okay. So, what happens to her is the dream of every TED Talk speaker. She is done, and a gentleman walks up to her and says, God, that was fascinating. How much do you need? I swear. And he said, how much do you need? I want to start a company with you. They started a company called Novalia. And their first product was this.
Think about the accomplishments. I can see you watching me. Approach everyone positive, but if you can't pick your fan, you're not the man.
Creating music can really trigger creativity in young people. That's why McDonald's in the Netherlands introduced Matrix, a paper placemat turned into a full music production station. By the use of conductive ink on a piece of paper, we connected our placemat to your smartphone. Every touch point triggered a full sound bank to kickstart your creativity.
Let's go, let's go.
You get the idea. If you're interested, please go to YouTube and just type in McTracks. But this was sheet fed using conductive inks, electroconductive inks. Every touch point on this placemat, this McDonald's placemat, allowed you to create music recorded, and it used the speaker and the battery of your smartphone to be able to do it. I mean, how brilliant. Why was it Norway? Because it was a small enough market that they could actually control it. Why also Norway? Because interestingly enough, while for us McDonald's is like, of course, McDonald's is really tough to launch in Europe. They don't like fast food the way we do. They question big corporation. So who do you want to target? You want to target a young demographic that's going to take it and make it go viral. So this, actually, give me just a second, we're done. So this was fabulous. What did they do next? Yeah, you're reading this right. They created a DJ PlayStation in a pizza box.
Connect to your phone via Bluetooth or your laptop. You have the standard setup.
So he's got the pizza box
You have your volume control.
that is a complete DJ station connected to his computer, connected to speakers, and he can literally play it. He can scratch, he can go back and forth, he's got volume control. And by the way, it does come with the pizza. Cross my heart.
On the other side, you've got the exact same
Now,
setup.
last thing I want to show you. It doesn't have to be extraordinary. It has to be clever and well designed. And if you know your demographic, you can do this and you can hit it on the head. And this is an absolutely perfect example. So this is a pizza box. It's printed on an offset press, but this is just brilliant design. And it's holding the lens. You're also going to use it, flip it over to hold your phone. QR code on the side of the box gets you to the place where you can then download the movie as a part of the promotion. You are now using the pizza box with the holder and the lens to watch the movie. If you're going for a teen demographic, tell me that this does not rock. Is it for everybody? No, but you know what? Pizza is competitive, right? And if you need an edge, you can have a pizza and a movie and a projector. I mean, come on. That's great design. So, I hope that you found this interesting. Stuff tonight, and I tried to move as quickly out of respect for your time. You can always contact me. That's my email address. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Happy to share some of these with you. Everything you saw, except for a couple of pieces, quite honestly, you can find on YouTube. All you have to do is type in augmented reality / IKEA, pizza, Novalia, whatever. They're all available with much, much more. I wish we'd had more time. Until I see you again, different topic, I really hope all your print meets your expectations. It's been a privilege as always to be here.